episode of One Piece, Kinemon's long journey to find his best friend Kanjuro is finally over. The best fighters from Kurita Coliseum continue to fight against Don Quixote's family, and Luffy is this much closer to beating Doflamingo's ass, that is until he runs afoul a group of very evil nutcrackers. And that's not like a joke at the fact that they're gonna like kick Luffy in the balls or anything. They're literally like giant living nutcrackers. Okay, so this week's episode was really simple, but it was really cool. I especially loved the introduction of Kanjuro. That was probably my favorite thing about this week's episode. Now, when you actually see Kanjuro for the very first time, his overall appearance is just ridiculous. The massive red hair, the ridiculous grin, the pale face, and of course his overall just carefree demeanor. Kanjuro has this really cool and useful power where he has this massive paintbrush and whatever he draws will actually come to life. This is very similar to the character of Sai from the manga and anime series of Naruto. Unlike Sai, however, Kanjuro doesn't exactly have a lot of drawing ability, and he draws this spring sparrow, which looks incredibly cartoony. It's ridiculous, and I especially love the attention to detail, how they actually make it look kind of like a crayon drawing, and how it sort of like clashes with the overall art style of One Piece, which is already pretty weird, so for them to actually make something that clashes with that, that's quite an accomplishment. So both Kanjuro and Kinemon are able to ride on this thing, but they decide to help out all of the prisoners of Dressrosa by drawing these ladders, and presumably they're all going to go to war with Doflamingo. And that brings us to the rest of the episode, which is pretty much just pure raw action, which frankly I'm okay with. I think it's really awesome just getting to see the different members of Don Quixote's family fighting back, because they're all really devastating and powerful. And I think Dellinger is the one who's been the most surprising, because he's just one-shotting everyone, left and right. That scene where he took out Dogma this week was really surprising, and it was all in an effort to try and stop Luffy, but of course Dogma being the badass that he is, and of course he looks like Dr. Eggman, he had to hold on to him and make sure that he couldn't get close to Luffy, and then of course he was fighting against Blue Gilly and even Elizabello this week. It was insane, and of course there's Baby 5, who's just so incredibly awesome and stylish, fighting against Don Chinchou, and Gladius. Gladius is so cool. He just constantly tricks people into walking the bombs. That's really his whole shtick, which is just making shit blow up. Simple as that. The rest of the episode follows Luffy, Law, Kyros, and Cavendish as they're making their way to Doflamingo, and I love actually how they're making their way up the mountainside, with Cavendish using his sword and his abilities to actually cut a path for them. It's attention to detail that I actually didn't even notice at first, but as the episode was going on, I was like, alright, yeah, that's pretty freaking awesome. And as they make their way to the very top of this mountain, you get to see that everything's all misty and foggy, and then walking slowly out of these fog are these really creepy giant nutcrackers, which are going to be attacking our friends, bringing us our classic to be continued screen. So what's the rundown? On this week's episode of One Piece, this was a very simple but fun episode, and typically I find myself really loving the action scenes a little bit more. I loved the introduction of Kanjuro this week. I think he's a really fun character. I love his ability, and I can't wait to see more of his drawings in action. The Spring Sparrow was really funny, and it was really a nice comical twist for this episode after all of the intensity at the beginning, especially with Dellinger, who just constantly keeps going into killer mode. I really can't wait to see everybody else in action. The scene with Cavendish and them making their way up the castle, that was really cool too, how he was cutting the path. It was all handled really well. On the technical side of things, animation, artwork looked pretty decent this week. I mean, decent enough for One Piece, but there were enough action scenes to keep anyone entertained. And pretty much everybody got to do something. That's the cool thing, you know, not just the people from Kurita Coliseum, but there was a really cool scene where Luffy was using his Gatling, this combined with the fact that Cavendish was still cutting as they were doing all of this attack at once. It was pretty freaking awesome. Next week's episode is one that we're really going to have to tune in for, though, because it's going to be Zoro versus Pika, like round freaking 15 at this point, but it's going to be really awesome, and I can't wait to see what they're going to do with that. So I'm going to give this week's episode of One Piece a 4 out of 5. I thought it was a really fun episode of the series, what with all the action scenes and the introduction of Kanjuro. So check it out, fans of the One Piece manga or anime series. So you guys know that I love this episode, but what about you guys? Did you like this week's episode of One Piece? Did you have a favorite action scene? What do you want to see from the rest of the Dressrosa arc? Please tell me in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching my review. Make sure to like it and share it with all of your friends. Remember, liking our videos is one of the best ways to help us out. I'm not joking. It's really easy to do. You just log in and hit the like button. Simple as that. Share it with your friends, all that jazz. Subscribe to the channel. Follow us on social media. Thank you guys again for watching. And as always, Stay dandy, baby.